Hello students, welcome back to your science class. I hope you have completed your notes. In today's class, I will introduce to you an interesting topic in science, that is adaptation in plants. Plants are one of the wonderful living things on our planet. They prepare food on their own. Some plants are small and some are large. They provide food to many living organisms. Many living organisms depend on plants for their food. Plants grow in different regions on the earth. They need adequate amount of sunlight, water and air. In the absence of one of the resources, they adapt by modifying their stem and leaves. Plants grow both on land as well as water. They are categorized based on their habitat, that is terrestrial plants and aquatic plants. Terrestrial plants grow on land such as mountains, deserts, plains, grasslands, rainforests and marshes. These are the places or the regions where the terrestrial plants grow. Some of the examples of terrestrial plants are barbul, banyan, mango, rose and wheat. These are the some examples of terrestrial plants. Plants and mountains. How is the weather in mountainous region? It is very cold. In winter, the temperature in mountains is very cold and there is snowfall. How are the plants in this region? Here in this picture, you can see the trees or the plants in mountains. They adapt to this crucial climatic conditions. Trees on mountains grow tall. Here you can see the trees in mountainous region. They grow tall and straight. Some trees such as pine are conical. You can see the shape of these trees. They are in conical shape. Why they are in conical shape? This shape allows the snow to slide off the trees easily. Here you can see the snow is covered on the trees. It is in conical shape because it helps to slide off the snow when it is fallen on the branches of the tree. How is the soil in mountain region? The soil is dry in mountains. Trees such as spruce, fir and pine have needle-shaped leaves which have waxy coating to prevent excessive water loss. Here you can see the shape of the leaves. They are needle-shaped. These trees do not shed their leaves and remain green throughout the year. They are therefore called evergreen trees. You can see the color of the trees. They are green in color or they do not shed their leaves throughout the year. Trees such as oak and maple adapt differently to survive in the dry and harsh weather conditions of the mountains. Due to fall in temperature and lack of sunlight during winter, the groundwater in these regions freezes. You can see in pictures the water, or you might have heard about the water in winter season in the mountainous region. It is freezed. Hence, the fall of temperature and lack of sunlight during winter, it is difficult for these trees to adapt to this temperature. Hence, what do? As a result, very less water is available for these trees to carry out photosynthesis and transpiration. You have learnt about these processes, that is photosynthesis and transpiration. It is not possible for these trees to carry out photosynthesis and transpiration. Hence, in order to conserve water, these trees shed their leaves in winter, which enables them to survive in the cold weather. To survive in this weather, they shed their leaves. Here in this picture, you can see how the leaves are shed. Plants in desert. Here in this picture, you can see the desert region. How is it? It is sandy and you can see the soil. Rainfall is scanty in deserts. Since the soil in desert is either sandy or rocky, plants are unable to absorb much water from the soil. The climatic conditions here is hot and dry. Hence, plants in desert adapt in various ways to reduce water loss. Some plants store water in their stems or leaves. These fleshy plants are called succulents. Here you can see the picture of succulents. These store the water in the stem or leaves. You might have heard about the plant cactus. Where does it grow, children? It grows in desert. A cactus is a desert plant whose leaves are modified into spines or scales. Unlike leaves, these spines or scales do not lose water through evaporation. There is no water loss. These plants have long taproot systems that go deep into the ground to absorb water. Here you can see the roots of the plants growing in desert region. How is it? They go deep into the soil to absorb water. You already have studied about taproot. Which type of root is this, children? It is taproot that goes deep inside the soil. One single root going deep inside the soil to absorb water. Here are the examples of plants growing in desert region, that is cacti, date palm and babul. These are the few examples of plants growing in desert region. Plants in plains. Many types of plants grow in plains such as herbs and shrubs. These can experience varying climatic conditions. Here the branches of the trees grow very thick. They can withstand severe heat during summers and in winter. Some of them shed their leaves just like some plants found in mountains. Here you can see the trees in plains. New leaves sprout on them with the arrival of spring. Here are some of the examples of plants growing in plains. That is peepal, banyan, gulmohar and neem. These are the plants growing in plains. Plants in grasslands. Here you can see this picture. Are there many trees in grasslands? No, there are only few trees. Grasslands are regions that do not get sufficient rainfall. These areas have very few tall trees. You can see here very less tall trees. They are mostly covered with grasses and wild flowering plants. Here you can see wild flowering plants. These plants have extensive root systems which prevent grazing animals from uprooting them. You can see the root system of these wild flowering plants. How are they? They are extensive root system. They cannot be uprooted easily by grazing animals. So it is not easy for the animals to graze over them. The roots of the grasses go deep into the ground to absorb as much water as possible. You can see the roots of these plants. They are deep into the ground. They go deep into the ground to absorb water. That is as much water as possible. Grasses have narrow leaves which prevent water loss. Here you can see the leaves of these plants. They are narrow. Why they are narrow? It is to prevent water loss. Plants in rainforests. In this picture you can see the plants in rainforests. How are the children? They are very beautiful. Look at the second picture. You can see roots of the trees in rainforests. How are they? They are spread in all directions. This helps the trees to stand still, and these roots prevent the trees from falling as the roots are spread in all directions. They are not deep into the soil but above the soil, but they are spread in all directions. How are the leaves of the plants in rainforests? Look at the picture carefully. The tip of the leaves of the plants in rainforests are modified in such a way that the raindrops fall off easily. In this picture, you can see the different leaves of different plants. What is the color of the leaves of the trees and plants? It is green. The trees in these forests are evergreen. They are green throughout the year. Here are the examples of the trees of evergreen forests or rainforests. They are rubber trees, teak trees and cashew trees. These are the few examples of trees in rainforests. What about the flowers? Are they developed in the rainforests? Yes. Several varieties of orchids and other flowers bloom here due to the warm and humid climate. Here you can see variety of orchids and other flowers. They bloom in the rainforests. What about the animals, birds and insects? Are there animals, birds and insects in rainforests? Yes, there are. Rainforests are also home to many animals, birds and insects. Here you can see varieties of animals, birds and insects. What about the small plants in the rainforest? How do they survive? Sometimes the tall trees cover the small plants and hinder the sunlight from reaching them. So what do these small plants do? So these small plants climb up the trunks and branches of trees in order to get sunlight for carrying out photosynthesis. Here you can see the small plants on the branches of the tree. They climb up on the branches to carry out photosynthesis. Plants in marshes. Marshy areas are wet and found close to water bodies or along seashores. Here you can see the trees in marshy areas. How is the soil in marshy areas? These areas have clay soil. Clay soil has very fine particles with tiny air spaces within. How this clay soil helps the trees? So, these clay soils hold large amount of water. It is also very sticky. This soil is very sticky and this soil helps the trees to grow. How are the roots of these trees? The roots of plants growing in marshy areas cannot penetrate deep into the soil. Hence, the roots grow above the soil to take in air. So here you can see how are the roots of these trees. They are not penetrated deep inside the soil. Hence, the roots grow above the soil. Why do they grow above the soil? To take in air. Such roots are called breathing roots. These type of roots are called breathing roots. Here you can see one of the example of trees in marshy areas. Some trees such as mangroves grow in saltwater marshes along seashores. Here you can see the mangrove tree. This is a tree in marshy area. You might have seen this tree along the water bodies, maybe in and around the islands in this place, in this region, that is in Udupi region. Adaptation in aquatic plants. Plants that grow underwater or on the surface of the water are called aquatic plants. They are categorized into three types. These plants either float on the surface of water or remain fixed to the bottom of a water body or grow underwater. Here are the examples of aquatic plants. They are lily, lotus and pondweed. Floating plants. What do you mean by floating plants? Plants that float on the surface of water are called floating plants. Here are the examples of floating plants. They are water lettuce, the first picture, duckweed, second picture, and third is water hyacinth. These are the few examples of floating plants. How do these plants float on the water? Let us see. They have spongy bodies which have empty spaces filled with air. This makes the plants light enough to float. Here you can see the floating plant. How is it? You can see the leaves. If you have seen in real, it has spongy bodies. So this fill in the air inside and helps them to float. Are very light. Fixed plants. What do you mean by fixed plants? The roots of some plants such as water lily and lotus are fixed to the bottom of a water body. Such plants are called fixed plants. Here are the examples of fixed plants. They are water lily and lotus. How do their leaves and flowers float on the surface of water? These have hollow, lightweight stems that help their leaves and flowers grow on the surface of the water. Here you can see the stem of the fixed plants. They are hollow, lightweight stem. How are the leaves of these plants? They also have broad leaves with a waxy coating. This coating repels and prevents the leaves from rotting. Here you can see the leaves of lotus. You can see that they are floating and how the water is repelled. You can see water drops on the leaves. These plants have stomata only on the upper surface of their leaves, which help them to perform photosynthesis. Here you can see the stomata on the lotus leaf. They have stomata only on the upper surface. Why the stomata is only on the upper surface and not on the lower surface of the leaf? Because it can absorb carbon dioxide in the atmosphere easily and carry out the process of photosynthesis. Underwater plants. These plants grow and remain underwater. Here are the examples of underwater plants. They are tape grass and pondweed are the examples of underwater plants. Underwater plants have long, thin and narrow leaves that look like ribbons. They grow in clusters or bunches. Here you can see the leaves of the underwater plants. They are like ribbons and they grow in clusters or bunches. Here you can see some of the underwater plants. The leaves of many underwater plants do not have stomata. They do not have stomata. Their surface cells absorb dissolved carbon dioxide and release oxygen into the water. They do not have stomata, but their surface cells absorb dissolved carbon dioxide and release oxygen to the water. Stay home, stay safe. Thank you.